The storm outside the old university rattled the leaded glass windows of Professor Aldrich Voss's private laboratory. Thunder shook the stones of the medieval building, its flashes illuminating the strange symbols painted in tarnished silver across the floor. Voss barely noticed. His bloodshot eyes remained fixed on the ancient leather-bound journal lying open on his workbench, its pages filled with cramped Latin annotations and diagrams that twisted the stomach to behold. For 30 years, he had pursued the secret through the occult libraries of Europe, in whispered conversations with disgraced priests, in the cold rooms of morgues, where he deharvested tissues from corpses that still bore the marks of violent ends. Tonight, at last, the great work would be complete. The brass alembic bubbled over a low blue flame, its coiled tubes dripping a viscous, iridescent fluid into a glass receiver. The scent of copper and spoiled honey filled the air. Voss adjusted the flame with trembling fingers, his joints protesting with arthritis despite his mere 50 years. Soon, he thought, soon the decay will be undone. He turned to the centerpiece of his apparatus, a human heart, suspended in a web of silver wires, slowly pulsing as if alive. It had cost him dearly. A first edition Newton, 2 vials of laudanum, and the silence of the coroner's assistant. The organ had belonged to a murderer hanged that very morning, and the vitality of violent death still clung to it. Per ignem et sanguinum, Voss murmured, adding the final ingredient, a blackened sliver of what he believed to be a genuine philosopher's stone, purchased from a doddering old woman in Prague who had no teeth and too many fingers. The moment it touched the liquid, the elixir turned a luminous, unnatural crimson, swirling as though stirred by an invisible hand. The professor hesitated only a moment before raising the glass to his lips. The effect was immediate. Fire raced through his veins, but it was a glorious fire. The stiffness left his hands. The perpetual ache in his back dissolved, and when he caught sight of himself in the beaker's reflection, he nearly wept. The sallow, sunken face of an aging scholar had been replaced by the visage of his youth, vibrant and strong. Laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the stone chamber. Then the laughter died in his throat. His reflection had not. In the curved glass, his doppelganger continued to smile, wider and wider, till the corners of its mouth split like overripe fruit. The hands it raised were not his own, the fingers too long, the nails blackened and sharp. Voss stumbled back, knocking over a stand of glassware. But the shattering of beakers was drowned out by a new sound, a wet, rhythmic dripping from the ceiling. He looked up. The heart in its silver cage was no longer alone. Dozens of them hung from the rafters now, pulsing in unison, their arteries knitting together into a grotesque chandelier of flesh. The journal on the table flapped its pages like wings, the margins now filled with script that squirmed like worms, words he had not written, in a language that hurt his eyes. You sought to master the prima materia, the text seemed to whisper directly into his mind. But the materia has mastered you. Voss's scream was cut short as his bones began to unspool, his ribs cracking outward like the petals of some terrible flower. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was his own hand elongated, twitching with too many joints reaching for the journal to add one final note. When the university custodians found the lab the next morning, the door was locked from within. The floor was sticky with a substance neither blood nor wine, already eating through the stone. Of Professor Voss, there was no sign save for a single line of text, scrawled in what might have been bile across the journal's final page. The work continues. And from the shadows of the cellar, something that was and was not Aldrich Voss began to laugh.